Welcome back to FFF. As usual, I'm your host, Lane. It's all the us three, Man United and Chelsea representing. No Arsenal fans here, but they're not quiet, cards, not running away, just not with us today. We're going to discuss a few issues that affect us as fans and the clubs that we support. Primarily COVID-19, it has not gone away. And we see a boom in cases, especially among players. Man City was hit by 5 cases recently, and you have cases throughout the Premier League and in championships and other leagues. One scenario actually caught my attention, and it was with Mendy, a player that we have criticized for quite a long while. Primarily based on his performances. And usually, when he's absent from the field because of an injury, but he has been so poor of late, Pep practically had to bench him, and Zinchenko is the man that is leading the line. And you'd think that, you lose your spot and you'd try to work on your craft so you can get back in the first team, and you do this, you get yourself in trouble. And his boss came to his defense, and Pep was criticized, especially the fact that Pep was someone who lost a loved one because of COVID. He lost his mother, and he had to defend a player that seemingly was irresponsible. And right now, what is happening is that there might be fears that football might have to lock down, and you'd expect that these footballers understand what they went through last year. Football and a whole in Europe had to take a break, and now in a situation where that will happen again. What do you guys want to say on that?
That's right.
All right, so let me start. So, COVID bigger than football in itself, and there are a couple of things that are happening, that is reflective of just general life. So, March last year it was declared a pandemic, and they initially was met with a lot of fears, etc. And as it progressed, you realize people start lose that fear, them lose that shock value of it, and start behave a little bit more irrationally. Now, I think that kind of explains Mendy behavior. Now, Mendy behavior on the field and off the field is the same. He's a reckless player. So it honestly don't surprise me. Because remember one time he was actually out injured and supposed to be in France, recuperating, and then find him in Brazil. So his behavior not really shocked me. But in terms of what is happening with the numbers now, particularly in the UK, it's very critical because, I was reading up on some statistics, and I understand that 1 in every 50 person in the UK, is thought to have COVID currently, and 1 in 30 in London. So when you think about it, even though we think about, the football teams and players almost, in an isolated sense, because we watch them every Saturday, even though, the country is on lockdown, it is not unreasonable to think that, COVID is ravaging these teams also. So I think eventually, at some point, the league will have to stop. I mean, that's one option. I've heard Sean Dice come out, the Burnley manager come out and say, maybe we should consider giving football players the vaccine, because the vaccine now, based on how the vaccine is being distributed, is based on a priority basis. Frontline workers, the most vulnerable, those are the persons that they're prioritizing it for. Now, the amount of tests that they administer to the teams on a weekly basis, he's saying probably that's a waste of money, just to buy all of those tests. Why not give the players the vaccine and then redirect some of that money to, frontline workers or people who really need it? But the reality is, COVID is bigger than football. It is something that, many people, I guess, unrealistically thought would have gone away in 2021. It's actually worse than it's ever been right now. And it's spreading faster than they can distribute the vaccine. So at some point in time, I expect that there may be a break in the football. And the reality is, even if they continue to have the teams playing, sooner or later, there are going to be instances that we saw recently where matches are postponed and we're unable to have that match. So I think it's something that, the FA have to get in front of immediately, and it may mean that, the beautiful game takes a break again.
Okay, fair. Lane, a player that you like so much was hit with COVID-19, Paul Pogba. And you saw that, yes, he did his 12 quarantine and protocol, stayed away for 14 days. But you could see how his performances were hindered. You know, he himself said that he didn't expect that he would be so rusty and he'd be so worn out and tired recovering from this. And it took him practically 2 months to reach back to a level that you'd expect from him. You know, and you look at these footballers, they're like awesome athletes, and how badly COVID can hit them. And imagine normal specimen like me and you know, and you think about that. All right, Mendy might be someone that Man City can do without for a while, but Man U suppose Bruno get it, or
Those are things like that.
fair enough. But you know, big players that come in contact with a normal squad members and they're out.
Yeah.
And not only if they return the team is the shape that they're returning.
Yeah, I think it's a little different now. I think at the start of the season, you went through, you know, the entire team didn't have a preseason. So yes, Pogba was off, but the entire team was bad. So it took the entire team a while to get up to scratch. I think COVID will impact individual players, yes, but not necessarily the entire team if it is that it's an isolated case. The issue that we have though is that if you have somebody in the team training in the first team, then chances are your entire 23 could have it. And we saw an issue there with Aston Villa where in the FA Cup they had to play pretty much most of their under 23 team.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're going to see the biggest impact, where a team is now forced to play, you know, their reserve team or their under 23. That's definitely going to impact the points for them. And I think from the perspective of governance and regulation, I think that's a good idea from the FA, because it forces the clubs to put, you know, more strict measures in place, or stricter measures in place to ensure that these players understand the impact or the ramifications of actually partying. Now, there are two sides to it, right? We need players need to stay in the bubble. People need to stay, you know, in lockdown to help to manage the case count. And we see where it's been very successful in other countries across the world. I think New Zealand, Kevin, don't have any cases, and you have people who can actually go to sporting events and celebrate.
Yeah.
So you see where you can have success from, you know, social distancing, everything. So, but the other side to it now is people are getting restless, people want to work. You know, Christmas come up is a time with family and friends. And I guess, you know, somebody's saying, well, I'm going to take a chance. And I think that's the main reason for the spike in the cases. So, I mean, we're out of the Christmas period. The virus has mutated. And, you know, it's interesting to see. I think the FA, if they can get in front of what's happening and manage it, then I don't think they're as unprepared as they were when we had to postpone the season before. I don't think they're that bad. I think they're probably looking at this thing in more detail now. And they're probably saying, okay, how are we going to manage it throughout the seasons? If we have to postpone matches, what are we going to do? And probably try to manage it from there. But definitely, based on how we see things going, because even for Manchester United, we see where Palestri actually contracted COVID. He was out of the Watford game. So he had to play a player who he didn't want to play. He may have been, luckily he wasn't in contact with a lot of the first team players. So you don't have them having to quarantine. Now, when you think about it, if he was involved in first team training, playing with the first team members, you have Manchester United will be playing Liverpool, you know, on the 17th, which from this data recording is a week from now. So, you know, those players will be out for 2 weeks. Then you're obviously not playing a strong side against Liverpool. You're not playing a strong side against Burnley. You find yourself moving from let's say the top two down to, you know, based on how the table is in the top six, you know. So definitely that's how I see COVID continuing to impact the league going forward.